I literally got on my knees. I was like, not on my knees, but I was like, what's the, yeah, anyways. I was so upset. I was just like, oh. Malik talked about it when he was on his podcast, but I think receiving feedback on your voice is really difficult because it's literally your body. Like, it is a part of you.
One of the best things about feedback is it's an outside perspective telling you things that you wouldn't have known that help you. Good feedback, though, is when they understand what you're trying to accomplish and they say, hey, I see what you're trying to do. You've told me what you're trying to do. If you did this, I think you'd actually do that even better.
Which, let's be clear, the onus is on you to make your vision clear to the people that you're asking feedback from. So it's helpful for you to give them the right frame by which they do give feedback so that they can tailor it to what your goals and vision is.
If you're listening and you're thinking, no one gives me feedback, that's on you.
Hey, thank you guys so much for tuning in to our podcast. If you find any of the information on here valuable to you as a songwriter or a music artist, make sure to subscribe, make sure to like this video. We want to help more people get the information that you're receiving and benefiting from. Thanks. Enjoy the rest of the episode.
What's up, Kamo?
What up?
Hey, we're going to have a fun time talking about feedback today.
Yes.
Very different feelings with this word. I think especially like in the business world versus the creative world, there's all sorts of things with feedback.
Mm-hmm.
So my first question, just I thought it'd be really fun, is what is the time someone gave you feedback and you felt like it made you better?
Yes. That person was you. And David and I do ministry together at our church. And at a youth night one night, I was leading worship, so singing. And this particular night, I happened to be really pitchy. And more pitchy than normal. And this is like really hard feedback to give anybody. You did say this night that you wouldn't give it to anybody else because you'd be afraid to.
Terrified.
But because we are best friends, you can trust that I will receive it. And so basically David was like, hey, he's like, I think you should either take the key down or like work this out because that's not hitting. Doesn't sound very good. And that was like really hard. I think I literally got on my knees. I was like, not on my knees, but I was like, what's the, yeah, anyways. I was so upset. I was just like, oh, God. And I was like, okay. And so I was like, I'm not going to change the key because I think I'm capable of this. Thankfully, Malik was there that night. We've had Malik on the podcast before. He is the main worship leader at our church and one of the best vocalists we know. And so Malik coached me through some things. I took David's feedback. And then by the time we actually had to lead students and we were in front of people, I sang it well. And I'm really thankful David gave me that feedback because I wouldn't have sang that well that night if he had not. But boy, was it difficult. And Malik talked about it when he was on his podcast. But I think receiving feedback on your voice is really difficult because it's literally your body. Like it is a part of you. Mm-hmm. It's not like an instrument where it's very technical. It's like, wow, you're like speaking to like something in my soul. And so, and also like my pride is like, it sucks to have somebody else tell me I'm pitchy and like not be that aware of it.
Yeah.
Well, even if you have a unique perspective of like, I'm wearing in-ears and you're out there hearing it in like a large room. It's like, I should have known that already.
Yeah.
So that was hard, but it was helpful and I'm really grateful. And so now, not only in that moment, but now in longevity, I am a lot more thoughtful with pitch and making sure I'm staying on. So it wasn't just a one-off helpful thing. It's helped me in general.
Bro, that was the hardest feedback
I've
had to give like someone singing.
Is it the hardest feedback you've ever had to give?
Probably not.
Okay.
But it was hard. I think sometimes when I give really hard feedback, when I've had to, like the other person invited, this is really hard because like you weren't asking.
Right.
It was something that like I felt like as your friend that I'm seeing and I should just tell you.
Yeah.
Now, again, thankfully, I've have such a good relationship with you that I know you would rather me tell you.
Yes.
You would rather have time to work it out.
Yes.
And that you know that I don't think you're a bad singer.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what's really hard is I didn't tell you that because, hey, you're a bad singer.
Right.
It was like, hey, I've heard you sing a lot better.
Yeah.
You're currently not singing to how great you can normally sing.
Yeah. And so it instills a lot of confidence and trust because now I know when you don't call it out, it's like, all right, I
It's
at
not-
least wasn't as bad as that night.
It's not because I hear it bad and I'm afraid to say something.
Yes.
It's because I don't hear it bad.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I can be a lot more confident rather than thinking every time, it's like, does David like think it's bad? Or it's like,
Yeah.
I know you're going to tell me if it's
Yeah.
not bad again.
Yeah. That was pretty hard. It's very hard to tell people when they're singing how it is. I think it's very hard to tell any creative. If you create something and you're proud of what you created, it's very hard to tell someone.
Mm-hmm.
And then, when you're in a long relationship, there's times when you have to tell the other person things that are really hard. And not like really bad things, but just like, hey, I'm trying to live well with you and this is happening.
Yes.
And so I think that's really hard. On like a lighter note, like I get and give feedback to my wife. That's just what you do in a good relationship. I think you have to.
Yeah.
You have to tell the other person how you feel. And she told me one time, like, hey, I don't like when you leave your backpack by the couch when you get home. Like, just put it in this other room where it goes.
Right.
It's like, okay, that was like an easy change that I can make. So sometimes you get feedback and it's like, oh, I could do that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that bothered you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm remembering now a time that you came to me a couple months ago and told me that you were trying to make a decision, like a life decision.
Oh.
And I kind of stayed out of it
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't want to influence you. And you kind of came back on the back end that like you were hurt by that.
Mm-hmm.
I was thankful that you told me that though. Like it was good. We had a great conversation about it.
Yeah. But it's like you wouldn't have known unless
I wouldn't have known.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that's like one of the best things about feedback is it's an outside perspective telling you things that you wouldn't have known that help you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not all the time is feedback that,
Mm-hmm.
but it can be that sometimes.
Yeah.
So, we're going to talk about feedback. I think there's an art to it. There's a science to it.
Yes.
There's ways to do it well. There's ways to do it poorly. There's way to give it. There's ways to receive it.
Yeah.
So I kind of wanted to just jump all into that.
I have found out recently in the last couple of months that I am not that good at giving feedback.
Giving feedback. Okay.
Yes, giving.
Yep.
I don't mind receiving it, but
Yep.
like I am not good at being thoughtful with my feedback. To the point where what I say is can be like hurtful sometimes. So we acknowledge that that's a reality too. That sometimes people just aren't good at giving feedback. And that doesn't mean you don't receive it. But I have found out recently that I need to work on giving better feedback.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I think with being thoughtful, especially when you're giving feedback to what someone else is doing.
yeah.
It's always helpful for me to assume the best, even as I'm giving them feedback. So it might be like, well, it's always more easy to do extremes.
Sure.
It might be like someone saying mean things about everybody in the office.
Mm-hmm.
So your feedback to them could be like, hey, like, I just want to let you know as your friend, like, I hear you say these things. Like, I don't think this is how you actually feel
Mhm.
about all of us. I hope it's not how you feel, but like, I don't think this is how you actually feel. I don't know what's going on, but I just want to let you know, like, this is what's coming off.
Yeah.
And I think that like disarms people
Mm-hmm.
because you're not telling them like, hey man, like, I just think you're a jerk.
Yeah.
You're saying like, actually, I don't think you are, but your behavior is kind of showing that you are. And so I just wanted to point out that there's like a disconnect if that's true,
Right.
which I think is really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So feedback, I think why feedback? Why should I even care?
Yeah.
I just want to make music. I just want to make creative things. Why should I care what other people think?
Yeah.
I think one of the best things is other people have perspectives and different thoughts on what you're doing that can be very valuable to you.
Mm-hmm.
I think the trick is it has to align with what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
So if you're writing music and in your mind, you're like, I'm writing music, I'm trying to reach this specific audience. I'm trying to write this specific genre. This is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make this my thing. And someone's feedback is like, hey, I think you should be doing something else. That's actually not good feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm saying? They don't understand your vision in mind.
Yeah.
Good feedback, though, is when they understand what you're trying to accomplish and they say, hey, I see what you're trying to do. You've told me what you're trying to do. If you did this, I think you'd actually do that even better.
For sure. I felt this in the context of my friends that I went to school with that have always been trusted voices in my life. And I'm thankful they self-adjusted because at one point earlier on in our friendship, when I would show them songs that I was writing or producing, their feedback would often be something to the nature of like, I would write it or produce this way if it were up to me, which is not helpful to me because we are different. We have different tastes. We have different approaches.
Yep.
And then they self-adjusted, and I didn't even think about this until they did, but they self-adjusted to, actually, let me not give you advice or feedback based off of what I would do. Let me consider what is normally your approach, your vision for your music, your style, and help you adjust it in that vein rather than being like, actually, you should go a completely different direction.
Yep.
Because that's what's going to be really, really helpful. And when they made that adjustment, I was like, wow, I'm so thankful because it's actually helpful to me rather than being a feedback based off of their tastes.
Yep. Yeah, and so you could show a song to someone, and you could, if I showed a song to like 5 people, and all 5 of them said around the same thing of like, hey man, every time we get to like the second chorus, we're just kind of like bored.
Yeah.
It's like, that's helpful feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Or if I show them it and all 5 people are like, hey, I think it's too high of a key. Hey, I think the song feels really slow. I think it feels too fast. Hey, every time you say this sentence, what does this sentence mean?
Right.
And if your goal is to make that sentence make sense, you should do something. If your goal was to write an ambiguous sentence that people have to sit on, you might take that feedback and be like, I hit the mark.
For sure.
That's what I wanted.
Yeah.
Man, I remember one time my friend was showing me a short film that he made for like a 4 to 8 hour film festival.
Okay.
And early on in the film, like one of the characters like runs to the bathtub and starts like vomiting. And I was sitting there watching my friend's film, and he's like watching me watch the film. And I was like, oh, like, and he looked at me, he's like, yes. And I was like, what? He's like, I wanted you to feel grossed out at this point. And so it's just so interesting.
That's
like he was taking my feedback in that moment of like, I did gross him out. That's what I wanted.
Right.
But you know, you could do a scene where like, he didn't want to gross me out. He just wanted to portray that the character was sick.
For sure.
I don't know. So anyways, feedback is just other people's opinions and perspectives. They see things that you don't. They don't have a bias. I could think a chorus sounds really cool. They could hear it and maybe they're like, I've heard this 1,000 times, or I think this sounds cheesy, or this isn't as cool as you think, because they don't have any emotional attachment.
That's true.
Again, the downside is they might not have the same vision, the same values, or the same goals.
Right.
But from an attachment point, they don't have that. So they have a good perspective from that standpoint.
Which, let's be clear, the onus is on you to make your vision clear to the people that you're asking feedback from.
Yes.
So it's helpful for you to give them the right frame by which they do give feedback.
Yes. Yep.
So that they can tailor it to what your goals and vision is.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. So like, how do you even get feedback? If you're listening and you're thinking, no one gives me feedback, that's on you.
Yep.
Because giving feedback's hard. And you have to know that the other person is open to receiving it before you'd feel comfortable telling them something hard, usually. Or you have to have an amazing relationship where you just know that they trust you.
Yeah.
So if you're not getting feedback, it's because you are not presenting your work to people around you in a way to give you feedback. I even think that when people show me songs, I'm always interested. Like someone might send me a song. Do you want to know how I feel about the mix? Do you want to know how I feel about the song? Are you just showing me this because you're proud and you're not looking for feedback?
Right. Which is like, okay.
Yeah. A lot of times I've thankfully grown.
Yes.
And I don't give feedback unless someone specifically asks it when they send me something. So if someone just sends me a song, hey, I wrote this new song, I listen to it and I'm just positive and supportive of my friend. Like I tell them honestly, like, I think this part sounds awesome. This is great. I'm not ripping it apart.
Right.
Now, if they're like, hey, what'd you think of the mix? I'll text them back and be like, do you want me to give you like strong feedback? Is that what you're looking for? And if they say yes, then we'll enter into that stage. But I'm always quick to like clarify that because that's not what everybody wants.
Yeah.
I don't want to walk around just giving critique of everything.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be a critic.
No.
I'm trying to give helpful feedback to the people that want it.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to also ask for it. So again, if you're not getting it, it's because you're not asking for it. When you ask for it, give a clear vision on what you're looking for. Give your thoughts on how you got here. I think that's an amazing thing too. Cause sometimes like people might give you feedback, but then you give them thoughts on how you got there. Like, oh no, like now I see what you're going for. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So give your thoughts on how you got there.
Who do you ask for feedback?
I think you ask people that you trust, people that you think know what they're talking about. So if you got a mix back on a song and you want to know mix feedback, I'm not going to go ask the guy who only listens to like live YouTube concerts from cell phones, and that's his form of music that he likes to listen to, on mixed feedback. I'm not going to ask my mom on mixed feedback.
Right.
So like ask a trusted professional, ask a couple of people, especially if you start to hear stuff that feels really off from what you thought.
Right.
That could just be one person's opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's 5 people's opinions, then you're like, ooh, maybe there is something to that. And at the end of the day, you can get feedback and still choose to ignore it. It's just more data for you to do stuff with.
Yeah.
So yeah, you don't need to ask 1,000 people. Also, I found that it helps, again, being really clear sometimes with like a question. Like if you're trying to get mixed feedback on a whole song, but you're really only asking, are the vocals too loud? Maybe you don't say that to see if it sticks out.
Yeah.
But then maybe a couple of people you do ask that specific question so they can help dial in on exactly what you're asking.
Mm-hmm.
I found, so like I live mix, which there's a lot of opinions and feelings and subjectivity to what makes a good live mix.
Right.
But I'm always trying to grow. So I have found that if I ask people that I trust, like especially musicians, I say, hey, what is one thing you like about my mix? And what is one thing you would change about the mix? That gives them like enough barriers to where they answer that. If I just say, hey, what'd you think about the mix? They might just be like, oh, it's good. Or, I didn't really like it. Or, but if I give them like, hey, just you tell me one specific thing you would change and one thing you like.
Yeah.
They'll give me really detailed thoughts on that category. And then if I ask 3 people and all the things they disliked about it are the same, they all say the snare is too loud. I'm like, okay, I probably just like got a little too into the mix and I just liked the way the snare was and I bumped it a little too much. Like I can take that.
Mm-hmm.
It's not personal.
No.
So yeah, that's how I would go about starting to like who I would ask and maybe how I would ask it.
Yeah. I think it's so interesting because opinions obviously are subjective. They can't be right or wrong.
Yep.
And that's why we keep going back to, you have to ask people that you know will understand your goals and your vision for your music, and then ask questions around your goals or your vision for your music. And so I will ask, let's see, I will go to trusted friends that I like their production.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, it doesn't matter whether or not their production is objectively better or worse. It's like, I trust them. I like their music. I want to draw influence from them, from them. And so I'm gonna ask them, and I'm gonna be okay with that decision. I think people are so fixated on like getting it right so that they'll ask like anyone and everyone.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no, like specify it, get clear, and trust the decisions that you've made to ask specific people. Yeah, I think if you ask too many people, that can be really dangerous.
Yeah, I think if you ask too many people, it could be dangerous. I also think if you ask people who don't live in that world,
yes,
it can be very dangerous.
Yeah.
Again, I just think in like a mixed perspective, but like, you know, you might ask someone like, hey, what do you think about this mix? And they might be like, oh man, like I want to feel the bass more. But they don't understand all the other elements of the mix and how they're balanced with each other. So sometimes it's always like when you make these kind of changes, every change you make could have negative consequences.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can decide to cut a chorus because someone said your song was too long, but then you realize that like now you're into the bridge weird. At like 1:30.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so you always have to balance like the full picture of something. And sometimes the people you ask feedback of, they don't have that full picture.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, just you have to take all this in when you're getting feedback. You have to learn how to sort through all of the thoughts.
For sure. And that's what I was going to say. I think it's helpful for you as you get feedback and as you have these conversations to kind of start pocketing like language and thoughts and concepts around the things that you're asking. I think it's good for artists and songwriters to have a baseline knowledge of all the things that they're asking about, having a baseline knowledge of like production. And I'm not saying you know how to produce or know how to engineer or know how to do X, Y, and Z. I'm saying know how to speak the lingo, which we've talked about this before too. Like it is very okay for you to like ask questions around like, man, like you should be asking like, how do I explain what I'm looking for. Like what are some good words that I can use to describe like what kind of feedback I'm asking for. I think the more you can internalize that language and that knowledge, the better conversations and more pointed they can be, rather than you remaining without knowledge of the topics and continuing to be confused about how to go about it and all that stuff. So you don't need to be a professional, but I think you do need to store knowledge on how to speak the lingo and and navigate these conversations, and also take note of like what you like and don't like about specific songs that you've worked on in the past already. That's how I've worked with you, is knowing what I tend to like and then telling you after the fifth, even if you like, you'll most likely pick it up. But even if you don't, like I'm very comfortable with being like, hey, just so you know, I normally like the bass in this spot. Yeah. And I normally like the vocal really up front. So you don't have to think about it anymore. We don't have to talk about it anymore. Yeah. So yeah.
Something I'm literally just realizing that's like a good tip to getting the most out of like a contractor relationship is asking them questions. Yes. So very few of my artists do this, but sometimes they do. They'll be like, hey, what do you think of the vocal? Do you think it's too bright? Yeah. Do you think it's too loud? What do you think about the drums? What do you think about this instrument here? And what's crazy is like, sometimes I get asked that question and I'm like, oh, that's a good thought. I do think it might be a little too loud. But sometimes I get that. I'm like, hey, let me tell you, like, I kept pushing it and I feel like we're like way far out of the references you sent. And so sometimes it's like, even when you're giving feedback, like if you just say like, hey, I want this, they're just going to do that. Yeah. But if you make it a dialogue sometimes, you might get a way better product because you're actually getting more from this professional that you're talking to. For sure. Rather than them just being a dummy to what you think the song needs. Yeah. So yeah, I love that when people have asked me questions on stuff, it's very helpful. Yeah. And I would say it really does feel like 50-50. Like I'm not arguing when they're like, hey, what do you think about this? I'm like, no. My original mix was it. Don't ask these questions. Right, like it really is like a 50-50 coin toss. And like, I'll be like, oh yeah, that is a really good thought. Or I might be like, oh, let me tell you, like I've been going down that road and I think we've like gone way too far in it already. Like,
yeah, for sure.
So I think it's very, very good. So, so you kind of start to ask people for feedback. You ask trusted people for feedback. You have to sort through it now. We've mentioned this, but you have to ask multiple people, especially if something pops up that's like a new thought. You're like, whoa, that's very different. Yeah. Like if you get feedback and you thought the song sounds amazing and someone's like, oh, I think you're like way off or something like that. Or like, when I told you your feedback about being a little pitchy, you're like, oh man, like I got to like really stop for that. It causes you now to like really think through like, okay, what's the long-term implications? Is this something I should be working on for a lot? Yeah. That might be a question that you have to ask a couple other people. And in our context, we had someone else listening that was a trusted friend and he was agreeing. Yeah. He was saying, hey, yeah, it came up like, I've heard you sing better. That wasn't it. Yeah. And then on the back end, when you made your improvements, it wasn't just me saying, that was so much better. Like someone else independently was like, oh man, that was so much better than went through. So again, getting multiple voices, the more data you get, it's like, okay, I can trust this because a lot of people are saying this. Or I don't have to trust this because only one person said it, but the other 6 people said the opposite thing. Right. So I think that's very helpful. Yeah. I also think really hard, but we need to do the work on trying really hard not to take things personally. Yes. If someone's giving you feedback, now I'm not talking about if someone's critiquing you or being critical of you for no reason. For no reason, yeah. But if you're asking for feedback and someone's taking the time and the emotional vulnerability to tell you something hard. Yes. We need to understand that they're not attacking us. They're trying to help us. Even if the feedback is bad, their intent was still good. So we need to not take it personally. 1,000%. They're not saying I'm a sucky songwriter. Yeah. They're not saying I have no talent. I have nothing to say. My stories don't matter. I don't matter. They're not saying that. They're just saying the product you're working on is not doing what you want it to do. That's all they're saying. Even in the context of your marriage. Yeah. The only reason Kiana would give you any feedback on little stuff like that is because she wants to learn how to live with you in a way that you guys love each other better. Yeah. She's not saying I don't like you anymore. Yeah. I want to divorce you. Move your stupid backpack. Yeah. Like, I think you're a very selfish person for leaving your backpack out. That's not what she's saying. Yeah. She knows that like I worked hard. I'm coming home, and that's just like my default mode. And she's just asking me to just move my default mode 5 feet down our house.
It's actually an act of kindness that she would say something to you rather than bottle it up and keep it to herself.
Yeah. Now, there could be a time where like you're being nitpicky on every little thing around you in relationally. And so again, all of this is in relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not critiquing every single thing you do, Kamo. I just don't.
For sure.
If there's big things in your life that I think would be very helpful, I'm going to speak up to them.
Mm-hmm.
It would be detrimental for me just to be like, I don't like the way you dressed today. I didn't like the way you drove today. I don't like the lunch that you're eating today.
Right.
Like, I'm not here to be a critic.
Yeah.
I'm just here to be a loving friend and give you helpful feedback at some points in our relationship.
For sure.
So don't take it personal. We just have to get away from that.
I've learned this topic. I was talking to John Shelton the other day, and he said something that was really thoughtful. This concept of withdrawal and deposit and withdrawal, where when you have a relationship with someone, whether it's you giving feedback or you receiving feedback, when that person is often depositing a lot of positive feedback and saying kind things about you and encouraging you in a specific area of your life, whether it's writing or something else, you know that the one time that they do give negative feedback, it's like you should take it seriously and you mean it, and you know that they have your best interest in mind. And this is the relationship. This is why I was able to take the feedback from you, is because not even just in a musical sense, but in a singing sense, but in a general sense, you deposit really well with me of saying encouraging, kind things to me. That when you say something negative, you with production even, it's like whenever you have something, you seldom have something to say about my production. You're very careful to not over critique on it when it gets to you in mix, which I very much appreciate because it gives me space to like just be me and produce, so that when you do say something negative or when you do have some kind of critique or feedback, I take it a lot more seriously rather than me just thinking, oh, David just wants to produce the track, or like he just wants to have a hand in it, just to have a hand in it. And he doesn't trust me and all this stuff. It's like, no, I know that he trusts me, and I know he gives me a lot of independence to the point where when he does say something, it's like, all right, like I better tighten this up because obviously this needs some work.
Yeah, that's a great thought. If someone's only giving you negative critique all the time, it's like, that's not the person you want to invite. It just
For sure.
It just destroys you. So yeah, don't take it personally. We have to learn to sort through it. We have to learn how to test what's true. And that's tricky. It's a skill though. Like if you're not practicing it, you probably will take it personally.
Yes.
And like, even if you are practicing it, I still take feedback personally, and I have to work on that. And I have to like pull myself out for a second. Like someone told me something I didn't like.
Yeah.
I need to like take a second. And I'll even tell people sometimes, like they might tell me something and maybe like my first minute or two is like processing. And I'm like, hey man, I'm just processing. Like I'm not mad at you. Like I just need some time to process and like get a fuller picture.
Yeah.
And then there's been times I've come back and be like, hey, like, I'm sorry I didn't handle that well. You did a good job by telling me that. I don't want the way that I mishandled that for the first 2 minutes to stop you from telling me stuff. So please continue to tell me stuff. I'm going to keep getting better at receiving your feedback.
Yeah, dude. It's always a visceral reaction every time, which I'm thankful when my friends like always front load it with like, hey, I'm about to give you some feedback.
Yeah.
Because then that gives me a couple of seconds, like you said, to like brace myself. And I don't know if there's a way to like outgrow that. Maybe there is. But like if I'm asking for it, I've braced myself. But when, like I said, like a trusted friend comes to me and I'm unexpected, it can be tough for me to like receive it well. And so, like you said, I need a couple seconds to like process and be like, okay, I know they're just trying to help me. I know I can adjust this.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think also like have the humility when you ask for feedback. And I'm not good at this, to not explain away someone's feedback all the time.
Right.
I think sometimes like I'll ask for feedback and then I'll start to get it and I'll be like, oh yeah, well this is why I did that and that and that and this and that. And it's like, it feels like I'm just being really defensive.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's like, it's just a humble act of like, I'm just going to ask for it. I'm going to take it. Like, I don't have to explain myself away.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have to try to prove why your feedback's not right.
Right.
Like, I'm just going to accept it.
Yeah.
Dude, one of like the hardest questions that I've heard that people have asked, people used to do this at Blue Ridge, is they would ask someone, if you could change one thing about me, what would it be?
Frick.
And it's like you would only ask like someone you really trust, but like someone that like would give it to you.
Yeah.
And then it's like they might tell you something that's so difficult to hear, but it's like it's a really important thing.
Yeah.
It's the one thing you would change about me. So obviously, like, it's probably the most important thing for me to focus on. So it's like,
Yeah.
you talk too much about yourself, or, you know, I don't think you say kind words, or you don't encourage people enough, or it's like, oh.
Yes.
So
For sure.
it's very tricky.
I'm always really honored though when people ask me that question. No, it's so good. Even as a producer, I struggle with like receiving feedback from artists because I just know that I know more than them about. But it's like I'm servicing them, and it's their song, and so it's especially hard when they like don't necessarily know how to communicate what they're asking for. But I'm often surprised also when like they give feedback and I implement it, and I'm like, huh, that does sound better.
Yeah.
Who knew?
Now, I think what is really tricky, I'll just dive into this because it's something I'm personally wrestling through.
Mm-hmm.
It's like sometimes I get people asking me for feedback professionally from stuff, but not hiring me to work on stuff.
Yeah.
And that's just like a tricky dynamic. So it would be like if a local business hired you to design a logo.
Yeah.
And so then you design a logo, but then you go ask like a big firm who you're not paying just to tell you, hey, what would you do here?
Yeah.
How would you make this client happy? And it's like, well, that client would have came to us if they didn't hire you.
Right.
And if I tell you what we would do, it's basically like we're giving you the idea, which is like a big part of the creative process.
Mm-hmm.
People always think it's the time piece, but I think the ideas and like, you know this, when you're producing a song or when I'm mixing, it's really 1,000 little decisions.
Yes.
That's what makes it up.
Yeah.
It's 1,000 little opinionated decisions that you have that you've trained over years that make it that product.
Yeah.
It's not the time it took for you to do that.
Yeah.
It's that. So when people ask me, like they don't hire me or they hire someone else and then they ask me for feedback, it's hard for me because I'm like, man, if I give you all this detailed feedback, it feels like you're basically taking my mix.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I'm not putting the time towards it, I'm not putting my hands towards it. But if you end up making all the decisions that I would make, that feels like what I get paid for.
Yeah.
And so it feels like I'm just giving you that for free.
Mm-hmm.
So it's tricky. I'm still learning how to walk through that because I have friendships and like I want to be a friend to that person. But then there's like the business side. So I don't have like a great answer. I'm just be cautious with who you ask for feedback.
Yeah.
Like for instance, I want to ask someone for some feedback about our business.
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask someone, I have someone in mind, and they do the online business really well model. And I don't want to devalue their work by just being like, hey, tell me everything I should do differently.
Yeah.
I actually want to approach it on like, hey, could I hire you to consult or to coach me and like basically just give me an hour where you look through my business and you give me some professional thoughts and I will pay what you think is worth that. I want to honor that person that way. So these are like things I'm still working out. I still have some friends that like I'll give feedback to on their mixes for free.
Right.
I still have other friends that I'm like, I'm trying to work this out because I feel like this is hurting me as a business, but I don't know. So
yeah, it reminds me of the Office episode where the guy's interviewing for Michael's job.
Oh, and he like has a plan.
Yeah, and he's like, yeah, I have a 3-part business plan.
Like,
and
can
Toby's
you tell
like,
us that
show
plan?
us the plan. And he's like, you want me to show you the plan?
Yeah, I can't tell you the plan.
I'll give you part 2 of the second part.
And just says like one word. Yeah. But that is true. It is so hard because it's like you want to prove what you have. But
for sure.
So that is a really tricky thing. So for the most part, feel free to ask feedback. You don't need to ask everybody.
Yeah.
Ask the right people. Also consider who you're asking. If they're a professional, a tier above you, maybe you should honor and respect that ask a little differently than you would ask a peer or someone who that's not their profession.
Yeah.
You know, if you wrote a song and you want your friend's opinion, but your friend runs an online songwriting coaching thing, and that's like all they do is they help songwriters craft their songs. Yeah. That would be like a little red flag to be like, oh, maybe this person that I asked the song for sure, I treat a little differently than my friend over here who loves music, loves my music. Yeah. But they're not doing it as a profession, so that doesn't matter. For sure.
Just remember, like, you are an amalgamation of all the feedback that you receive or don't receive. And so if you've gotten any traction on your ability to do anything musically, it's because people around you have made you better. One thing we keep hitting on in a lot of these episodes is music and music artistry. It doesn't exist in a vacuum.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's ever gotten anywhere completely by themselves. And so just have a healthy humility to you, and inviting other people to speak into it and helping you grow. Again, that's the whole point of feedback, is growth. This is something I have to keep reminding myself to do, and you too. Just yesterday, I hopped on the phone with another producer who is more seasoned than I, and I've been doing this for 8 years. And it's like, I think often that I've made it, and like, sure, I've hit a point of like proficiency, and like I'm at the quote industry level, I think. But this doesn't mean that like I don't stop asking people for like advice and like feedback on like how I can be doing things better. And I'm often surprised at the things that I don't know that I don't know.
Yeah.
So it's just a practice and a discipline that everyone has to do. And forget music, all the best leaders that we know in our lives in any area of work are even the 50, 60-year-olds that are so well seasoned. They're still asking for feedback and they're asking for feedback from like even people that aren't like the most qualified, because they just want to know.
Professional athletes,
yeah,
you know how much feedback they're getting real time
yes.
on every decision they make, every move they make, the way their body moves. Like if you're a basketball player, like every shot you took, every pass you made, like everything you do is being analyzed. How you work out in the gym, how you eat, how you sleep. Like you have a team around you who's like, we're going to give you a lot of real-time feedback.
For sure. Dude, it's wild because Anthony Edwards, NBA flat, he's my age. I know he's like a goofball. Like a lot of people see him as like immature. Yeah. But he's got some leadership skills to him. Yeah. Like I was watching a post-game interview after they beat the Lakers in game 1 a couple days ago, and he was asked a question by one of the reporters about him giving feedback to like all of his teammates, and he was like, man, he's like, man, like, he's like, you can't be giving. And he in his voice, he was pretty much saying, you can't give feedback to everyone the same way. Yeah. He was like, some of my teammates, like I know I can like cuss at and like I can like get big in their face, and other dudes you can't talk to that same way. And so it's like, how do I give feedback that's helpful to everyone? But he's like, all of them are getting feedback though. It's like nobody is gonna avoid it. That's for sure.
1,000%.
Which I was like, wow, that's just such good leadership as a 23-year-old. Yeah. It was great. It was great. I ate it up.
Yeah. So challenge for after listening to this episode. If you made it this far, here's your challenge. Ask someone for feedback. Yeah. Ask them for feedback on your music, on your songwriting, on your musicianship, on your singing. Ask someone for feedback on your Instagram page, on your marketing, on how you present yourself to your fans. Ask people for feedback on your live shows and how you structure those, on your merch. Literally anything that you do, that you create, you can ask people for feedback on. Yeah. It's something that we do. It's something we need to continue to do. And it's only going to make you better. Yeah. So that's that.
Yep. See y'all around.